Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time for another patch rundown. This is patch
Let's go.
14.6, which means we are on the 6th patch of Cyber City. We're getting to the end. The set's starting to wrap up. Meta's been good. People are doing their competitive stuff. They're doing their ladder climb. And so when we reach this point in the set, we try not to shake things up too much. Generally, a lot of our changes are either going to be minor balance changes or actually stuff to prepare us for future sets, like you saw with the item rework last patch.
Okay.
So this patch, like I said, things are looking pretty solid. Lots of playable things. So some minor changes here, and one big thing we'll talk about here. But let's jump right in.
One
get this
big
going.
thing.
All right, first up, the loot system. In 14.4, we made some changes to sort of de-escalate things as far as inflation was going around the item system and the loot orbs. And generally those landed okay, but not really great and not where we wanted it. And as we were doing our internal testing for future sets, we weren't really liking the situation it put you in. So we went through and we've decided to do some bigger improvements overall to the loot system. It's not like a drastic change or anything like that. But here are the three big takeaways. The first is that stage 2, 3, and 4 PBE rounds are now generally more consistent. So like the extremes between the mins and the maxes have kind of been sandwiched in. And so they'll always drop some items and some gold. Now, I'm not saying it'll be a lot of items or a lot of gold, but you always get some of each. So if you were somebody who really didn't like a 0 gold PBE round, that's gone.
Yay.
There'll at least be a little gold.
Nice.
Keep in mind, it could just be a silver orb that's 2 gold, so again, no major changes, but a little more consistency here. Overall, the total average item count has increased. So overall, you're going to see a bit more items than you did currently. But overall, you are going to see a bit less gold than you see currently.
Yay.
So again, not major shifts here, but overall, more items, things like that. It gets us kind of closer to where we were pre 14.4. But not on the gold side. On the gold side, it's actually a pretty decent deflation. And even in our testing in 15, we're pretty happy with this. So, like I said, this is another one of those changes to kind of get us ready for the next set. One other thing is that Scuttle Puddle and Crab Rave have been feeling a little less special. So they now increase by 1 component. It used to be 2, then it was 0, now it's 1. So we're going to try that. Cool.
Okay, so this is a big change again. Or rather, let me rephrase it. This is not going to be something that shakes up, I think, a lot of the comps necessarily, but it's a big change in terms of your general play experience, because I think everyone knows by now, they've been calling it the item recession, because there's some games, because of the way variables of openers are in TFT, you can start off with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 components, and the extremes felt awful. To be more specific, the extreme low end of items felt really bad. You can start off with 1 component and then get 1 component off carousel and then get no components off of 2.7. So literally, if you had no item augments, you could be starting off with 2 components all the way to your to 3.2. And that extreme variance felt like the game it didn't feel playable for people who were in bad spots, because they didn't have the luxury of not being able to slam items. It doesn't matter if you 2-star your board if you don't really have items for them. And so this is supposed to normalize that, and that's a good thing. And I like that they decreased the amount of average gold as well. This is going to have some pretty big ramifications though on the meta. Even if this was literally the only patch note, this would actually shift things from like things that depended on high gold counts, right? You're talking about like the open 4 amp roll downs. That's going to struggle more. Even going for fast 8 from bad spots is going to be harder, which means that it might encourage you to reroll more often. So this is a really big systemic change. But I'm glad that they're normalizing it. It's really frustrating to feel like, okay, I finally got items, but then now I have no gold, or the opposite. I have all gold and no items. And so that normalization is really good. The other element of this that I wish that they could also tackle is I do think there's imbalances in certain orb drops still. I know that's me complaining about very minor stuff. This is only applicable for the top end, but things like gold orbs are not very balanced either. And it's basically an extreme version of this. Some people's gold orbs are like just gold, and some people get like a ton of crazy impactful items. And so there's like not equivalence in that category, but this is a good step in the right direction. And I guess at this point, it's not going to be that important for them to focus on. It's just one of those things where like that's just another part of this loot system normalization that I think would be nice. There's the counter argument to this is people say, well, TFT is just a game of variance, right? You don't want everything to be the same thing. You want to have varied items, varied starts, varied openers. That's what keeps the game fresh. But there's also so many other things in TFT to have that variance that you don't need to have such wild swings. And I think that's part of, I mean, in my opinion, my take on it. Okay, you don't need to have crazy wild swings like that. And it's all contextualized because some metas you're going to want the gold and some metas you're going to want items. It just so happened that it felt really bad when you combine the gold orbs with the no items, right? You could have gold at 2/7 and then get a gold orb and more gold, and you just literally have nothing you can play. And someone else would get like the absolute nuts of whatever they could get for if they're playing some like rapid fire emblem shenanigans or whatever. So that extreme just felt really bad.
On the 2-star encounter, this is the one where your shop can randomly have some 2-star units. We've dramatically lowered the odds of seeing a 2-star champion in the early game, especially on the same round. They should say round. So, just going to make this a little bit more consistent of a portal as well. Finally, last thing here, pretty minor, but due to an oversight here, Talker's Trials 3-1 ended up way too hard with Zeri and Shiv. So we fixed that. So
I lost to this.
Talker's 3-1 shouldn't be kicking your butt anymore. So cool.
Dude, okay, I don't know if you guys have played Talker's Trials, but they put the new static Shiv on Zeri, and there's like 8 Zeris. And remember, Shiv is now an artifact. And so they buffed Shiv, and all these Zeris just dash in and one-tap your board. So I actually lost to Talker's Trials, and I was blown away. So yeah, I
fix that. So Talker's 3-1 shouldn't be kicking your butt anymore. So on the trait side, Dynamo Flex has been really good, kind of S tier, very flexible, very reliable. And a lot of people look at this comp and they're like, ooh, nerf Elise or ooh, nerf Morgana and stuff like that. But the reality is the trait itself has been doing a lot of the contribution. It kind of makes your tanks cast a lot more often, providing them just a lot more effective health and really good front lines. So overall, we haven't been really happy with just how valuable, like even just a 2 Dynamo is or 4 Dynamo. So we're going to nerf this trait from 5/7/11 to 4/6/10. This is going to come with some compensation buffs you'll see later. So we're not trying to like completely destroy like Misfortune or anything like that. So you'll see that in a bit. But overall, the trait itself was too much percentage of the total power of the composition. Exotech. Exotech has been struggling a little bit. We've seen Vexotech mostly fall off. We've also seen 7 Exotech basically be, unless you insanely high roll from the right spot, you're not really playing 7 Exotech. So 7 Exotech is going to get 60 more health per item equipped. So that can be up to 180 health. 5, really tiny, just 10 more health per item. And then attack speed, 1% per item at 5. So again, Vexotech not really getting like a massive buff. But 7's going to get 2 more attack speed per. Again, we don't want to overswing here. I'm not sure this is going to make 7 Exotech meta. We might have needed to swing a little harder, but it should help at least. Golden Ox.
Definitely
Golden
helps.
Ox is a very weird trait in the sense that of any trait I think we've ever made, the ratio of like 1st to 8th is pretty insane. Golden Ox right now is clearly the highest cap comp in the game. There's no comp better at nailing down first place. It's a little too good at it. And so we went with a very light touch here, just a little bit less base damage amp. Now remember, this does affect how it scales. So this is a bigger nerf than just 1%, but it is still a small nerf. And then a little bit less free components from this. Again, just trying to lower that cap. I still think Golden Ox is going to be the best cap in the game, just a little less. Syndicate, missing some green numbers here, but basically this is just a 5 Syndicate buff. 5 Syndicate is going to get 50 more health. It also shouldn't say HP per item, it should just say HP. So sorry for the typos there.
Okay.
But Syndicate, 5, a little more health, and a little bit more damage amp. So 3% more damage amp at 5 Syndicate. Just opening up some more 5 Syndicate lines, making that a little bit better. Finally, 6 Vanguard. This has been pretty untempting. No one's really playing around 6 Vanguard unless they get some like free Tactician's crowns and emblems and stuff like that. And even then, it's like, So 6 Vanguard's going to get 8% more shielding each time it procs. So should be a little bit better.
And that has pretty big implications depending on if you have things that synergize with it. So if you have like the Moonstone Renewers, if you have the actually wait, when it says shield percent, let me read Vanguard just to make sure I understand the correct part of the shield stuff. Because if there's because with Vanguard there's multiple ways to proc the shield. Let me just go ahead and make sure I'm looking at it correctly. So Vanguard says combat start. Vanguards get 12% durability while shielded. Combat start and 50% health. Gain a max shield for 10%. Okay, so this means more health. So it's 48% of your max health. So the more HP you give it. Okay, so I'm understanding it differently. So that just means that if you have an opportunity to buff your Vanguard's health, it's a more profound thing. Okay, cool. Make sure I understand that correctly. Start from the very top. Dynamo, I think this is an interesting nerf because I do think that Dynamo is like really flexible. And they've been wanting to nerf the 2 Dynamo in particular. Remember, they actually nerfed this and then they rebuffed it because people complained about it, saying like, oh, they nerfed Misfortune XDD. So I do think Dynamo in general is like a ton of utility. Team Mana in general is like a really difficult thing to balance when it becomes out of control. So I actually am open-minded about this nerf. I was actually thinking about nerfing Elise directly and keeping Dynamo where it was. So I guess they said that this is basically accomplishing that. And nerfing 3 Dynamo is actually kind of nice as well because there's like part of what makes that trait so nuts is how flexible it is, even on the odd intervals. So you can play like 3 Dynamo on like level 5 and level 7. 7 Exotech, they're buffing the vertical again. I think this is like the 3rd patch in a row or 2nd patch in a row. They buffed it last patch. But 7 Exotech is not particularly impressive, mainly because Zeri is not a very good solo carry, and Exotech tends to play around 4 costs without actual capstone of a 5 cost. And in order to get to the 5 cost, you have to get to like, a really good board state at level 9. I actually don't mind that 7 Exotech is not that insane because in my opinion, Exotech is like one of the real flex verticals. It's been a very interesting trait most of the set. I actually really like where it is. I would hate for Exotech to be in a spot where it felt like 7 Exotech was the only part of Exotech worth playing versus it's like 3 or 7. I kind of like that it's like 3, 5, and you get to play other stuff. But I understand that 7 Exotech kind of sucks. The only time that I think you can play 7 Exotech right now, from what I've come to understand, is if you have an Exotech emblem and you can put it on somebody to like duo carry, but if you have like Flicker Blade on Zeri, I think that's like a very niche situation that you can play. So it makes sense that they're buffing it because overall it's really unimportant. He said that he's not sure how impactful this is, but this is 180 HP, which is potentially significant to keep your frontline alive. So again, part of the reason why we're not, it's just one of those things where if you lean into it, it could end up being really good. Golden Oxford. This actually doesn't even tackle the Graves nerf, by the way. Like everyone's talking about Graves in chat. They want Graves to be nerfed, which I think is understandable. That comp is very good. This Syndicate buffs Twisted Fate for the most part. You're still not really that tempted to play in Misfortune, the setup, but I guess they're trying to see if that could happen. They're also buffing 7 Syndicate, so nice. So yeah.
All right, on the champion side, Kog'Maw Opener is a little too good. The win rate in the stage 2 rounds is insanely a little too good. So we are nerfing 1 and 2 star Kog'Maw very slightly here. This is minute when it comes to nerfs. Not nerfing 3-star Cog and technically buffing 4-star Cog, but barely. So just know that the rapid fire Boombot Opener will be a little bit worse.
Yep.
All right. This patch, 2 costs. 2 costs have kind of been the thing that haven't really been successful this meta.
Yep.
There's a bunch of 2 costs you look at and you're like, I barely even want to itemize them in stage 2, let alone 3 or 4 or things like that. So a lot of the 2 costs are getting some love here. Darius is the first big one here. Has anybody put a hat on Darius in a long time? Not really.
2-1.
So his base heal percentage is going up just a little, but if you put the hat on him, the big thing here is actually the damage fall off. Will go down, so he can actually do a pretty chunky amount of AoE damage if you want to consider investing in him.
Okay.
And he'll heal per target hit more. So Kingpin rerolled Darius might be a little bit better. Echo, this is one we have to be careful with because Echo as a tank is not that great, but he's still played in a lot of comps simply because he pairs with Nico, offers that Street Demon strategist connection with Nico. So we do see him on a lot of boards. So I'll be honest, this buff I don't think makes him like magically much better. And we had to be careful so we don't overbuff things like the Street Demon line or the Amp line that use this. But he does get a small buff.
Amp got
heal.
buffed.
Alawi 3, still not really worth investing in. So plus 100 on her heal. Cool. Jin, this is what I was talking about with some of those compensation buffs, as well as it helps early Exotech. Jin has basically fallen out of favor other than as a Dynamo trait bot or an early marksman trait bot, possibly an item holder as you head to Zaya. So he's going to get 10 starting mana and 10 mana off.
It's a big
so that
deal.
He can cast a little bit more often.
The nerf to Jin's mana was like when they did this, made him like the worst 2 cost in the game. So this is a really big buff because prior to that, he was the best 2 cost in the game. And they also buffed the vertical Exotech line, so it might be more appealing to itemize Jin now. So now it's like, yeah, maybe now we play some Jin openers.
Next up is LeBlanc. We're going to keep buffing her out little by little. We have to be careful because we don't want, her to be way too good and end up with like a strategist reroll that's way too dominant. But she'll do a bit more damage. Biggest buff here is actually at 2-star. So 2-star LeBlanc should actually feel a bit better. But there you go. Ross, this is actually one of the bigger buffs and maybe a bit of a surprise. But have you ever hit a Ross 2 on 2-1 and put items on it and really felt good about it? Not really. Not really. In fact, I think a lot of people right now would rather have the items on Vi than Rost. And I don't think that's really great. Now, yes, Rost provides the Divinicorp value of the armor and MR to team, so he sees a lot of play as a Divinicorp bot or as a Vanguard bot, but we want to make investing in him a little bit more worth it. So his heal is actually going up a good chunk here. This is a pretty big buff to Rost. So next patch, consider Rost as like a tank option. Could be cool. Skarner, we wanted to also buff Skarner, but we had to be kind of light because we couldn't just buff Rost and Skarner in the same patch. That might have done
and
some
Vanguards.
Things. So for now, what we did was if you go 3-star Skarner and have an armor item or 2 on him, he should output a lot more damage. So cool option here if you want to get like a Skarner reroll with a Bramble Vest going. So give that a try. Vayne just hasn't really landed since the Ginsu's rework. Yes, we recompensated buffed her, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So now we're going to raise her base attack speed. This is a sizable buff.
It's a pretty big buff.
So hopefully Vayne can be a bit more worth investing in. This also helps early Anima squad, which we're okay with helping a little bit more here.
Okay, so those are all the 2 costs. No Graves nerf. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's start with the... I didn't go over every one of them. So the only 1 cost they nerfed was Kog'Maw. I actually wish that they would nerf Morgana a touch as well. I think Morgana does too much damage, but Kog'Maw and Morgana openers just clear everything else. At the moment, it's like Kog'Maw is by far and away the best AD opener. Morgana just does so much. But I guess they did nerf Dynamo. You're right. So they did technically nerf Dynamo. So... Morgana openers are weaker. You're right. Okay, so at least I'll have that. All right, fair enough. But I do think Morgana does a ton of damage. It's insane. And sometimes you don't even play Dynamo as the opener. Sometimes you just play Morgana plus like Bruisers, Morgana plus Vanguards. And they also buff Jin. So it's like so Morgana Jin openers can now still be played. So that's definitely one thing. But overall, it's like these are like the right categories of things. Jin is so underwhelming. Echo is very underwhelming outside of it. In fact, yesterday I played a game. Some of you might have been here. As you guys know, I like to sometimes throw games for fun just to see what would happen. I rerolled a Nitro game where I 3-starred Kindred and Nidalee before my 3-2 augment. I rolled a 0 on it because I was playing Nitro. I was offered Recombob. And I chose to Recombob my Nitro board. And obviously that was a game-throwing decision, but it was funny. And it Recombobbed into Vayne 3 and Echo 3. And I didn't really win streak very much because Echo 3 kind of sucks. But like I actually saved a pretty decent amount of placements. I believe it or not, I didn't go 8 that game. But it was... Echo 3 kind of sucks, man. It's just not very good. He's a complete trait bot, so the worry of Mortdog is correct. Like, you worry that Echo would be too good because he would give like too much front line to an amp comp, to a street demon comp, but he's not good. So these are the right categories. Darius, same thing with Alawi. So no real complaints there. I think I have one reservation about this page. I think LeBlanc is actually really good. I actually think LeBlanc is really good. And I actually think that LeBlanc is quietly one of the better reroll comps to play. It's just that you can't really get into her very often because she's tied to Cypher. But there's a lot of data to suggest that she's actually not even paired to Mana Zane. A lot of people have the impression that LeBlanc is like a Mana Zane reroll comp. That's not even true if you were to like look at the data and you were to filter out all the crazy Cypher stuff. LeBlanc is actually pretty solid already. So it might be one of those things where now LeBlanc is like goes from a good reroll comp to like the best 2-cost reroll comp. It's just don't be surprised that ends up being the case. LeBlanc is very good already if you get the setup for it. And if you know how to play around her too, you're not. Some people said like, oh, you buff the LeBlanc and the Alawi and the Echo, so you play like reroll strategist. That might be one way to play it. The setup is LeBlanc, Echo, Nico, Alawi, Yumi because she's a strategist, and then you can tie in Anima Squad with the +1 like a Silas for example, and then work in more strategists that way. But you can just play 5 Cypher LeBlanc and she gets so much AP from it, and you can also reroll like Draven and Galio and you can crush. So both of those variations are really, really good already. These other buffs make sense. I'm not super excited about Scorner 3 unless I'm playing No Scout, No Pivot, and then Rost. I mean, that guy's. I mean, this isn't buff the hero augment, right? This isn't buff the hero augment. I think the hero augment replaces the spell entirely. All right, let's look at the 3 costs.
On the 3-cost side, Gragas, another Divinicorp trait bot, unfortunately. And so yes, if you're counting, this is Rost, Gragas, and Senna buffs, but they're all really minor, except the Gragas one. The Rost one's kind of big, the Gragas one's a little big, Senna's not. But either way, Gragas 3, not really an exciting tank, especially compared to like a Mordekaiser or a Braum. So we want Gragas to kind of be on those same levels. So he's going to get 10 off of his mana, so he can cast more and heal more. He's really good early, and so this is going to make Gragas openers quite good.
Grost.
But he's not going to, hopefully a little bit better. Senna, this is the world's lightest buff. This is really just meant to try to inch her up to being a playable comp that people are excited for. So she'll just cleave a little bit harder. I don't think it's going to move the needle much. Same with this Varus buff, 5 starting, 5 less mana, gets Varus casting more. Varus is a weird one in that some people will swear he's OP, but like you look at his play rate, you look at his item rate, like all the data around him looks really, really bad. Our internal data looks really, really bad on him. So this is one of those buffs that I went with a lot of caution. That's why it's such a small buff. Because I'm sure somebody watching this patch rundown right now and doing their own version is probably going, I don't know about this one. This Varus guy's like right on the line of being good. And it's like, yeah, we know, but he's right on the line of being good. He's not actually good. And so this is trying to push him over that line a little bit. So.
All right, the Gragas, you know the biggest problem with Chugbug this patch? It's not that Chugbug is weak. It's actually a good augment. But the problem with Chugbug is that every board plays Gragas. Like, it just feels like everyone's splashing it in. Gragas is played in Dynamo boards. It's played in the Graves reroll boards. It's splashed in Vexotech boards. It's played in, obviously, the Divinicore boards. You're playing Divinicore Z. So you just can't hit Gragas. He's also a really good splash. And then there's like the added impact, which is like if you're playing in a lobby where there's enough people scouting, they will know that you need Gragas. So they're going to like hold an extra Gragas. They'll just like hold 1 or 2. Like they're just tempted to hold that. And you just be so surprised how hard it is to hit. I took Heroic Grab Bag and I started off with a Gragas pair and I ended the game at 3 Gragas. I rolled one more. I waited for one player to die and I was at 1 life. I rolled. I found 2 more Gragas. I didn't even get close. I ended the game at 3 Gragas. I went 8th, so it wasn't even close. But like it's just so hard to hit. It's really, really hard to hit. So it's not like it's a bad hero augment. Just you're never gonna hit it. So maybe this makes 2-star tempo Gragas a thing with the hero augment. But unless it fundamentally changed, like the way this could work out is if the meta shifts away from playing the Divinicore splashes and playing Gragas as an interim frontliner. But I expect the same problems unless the meta shifts. Now, no real comments about the Senna. The thing about this Varus buff is I think a wise man once said, I don't know about this buff. I think Varus is actually on the line of being good already. I mean, I'm pretty sure Vex comp is actually really dependent on Varus already. Like, I think Varus is really good in Vexotech in particular. I also think that Varus is good in the executioner line. Like, remember when we played executioners with Rengar? Varus was also really good, and he functionally hasn't changed. It's just more the things around him have sucked. It's kind of hard to play Varus with Exotech and get like the good setups in it. So they buff vertical Exotech. They're buffing Varus. Who knows if they buff things around it, but it's entirely possible that 7 Exotech could be Varus plus Zeri now, right? If you think about it, like we said Zeri doesn't have a duo carry. What if it's Varus and Zeri now, and you just play 7 Exotech, and then you go for like Varus 3? That's entirely possible. So something to keep an eye out for. I think Varus is already a B plus A minus unit, and he might even be better now. This is a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal.
Cho'Gath, unfortunately, at 2-star just isn't really keeping up with things like Leona. He's one of those ones where, again, it's going to be really tricky. Like, the second he crosses over his line, he'll become unkillable. That's just kind of his design. So went really light here of just a little bit of extra health.
Nerfing Cho 3.
And 3-star Cho'Gath still overperforming, so that actually gets nerfed. Cool. Misfortune. This is, again, sort of the Dynamo compensation. We don't want to nerf all Dynamos. We kind of like where Misfortune actually is right now. And so this is meant to help Misfortune out so that if you're playing like Misfortune 4 Dynamo or Misfortune 5 Syndicate, it doesn't feel as bad. If anything, it should feel maybe even a tiny bit better. Not a lot. But right now, most of the Dynamo players are sort of like playing around Elise and Morgana and then into the Misfortune. But again, we didn't want to like kill that. We like Misfortune as a carry. So she's going to get a small compensation buff for the Dynamo nerf. And then lastly is Garen on the champion side. Now don't sleep on this buff. This is a very large buff.
Who's sleeping on
Garen
this?
can already do some good stuff in the right situation, especially with items like Sterix. But he doesn't really impress that much. He's much less high cap than like Zac, for example. 20 mana off is a big deal, especially because his spell has some mana refund stuff built in.
Yeah.
So this might get him 1, maybe even 2 or 3 more casts in a really good fight. So he might be pretty scary next patch. So give Garen a shot. Plus, he already gives those the emblem things, so the hacks. So yeah.
This is actually nice because Garen feels more about his trait than actually playing him, unless you're able to get him in the spot where he benefits from his own mods. So I do think that's good. It feels like you can play Garen for a turn and you hit him. It's good because a lot of times I've rolled down and I feel like I don't have time to play Garen. But man, it's a massive buff. And here's another thing too about Garen. I'm pretty sure we are terrible at positioning this guy. I can't tell you how many times I've watched a Garen fight and the guy's just ulting backwards because of bad positioning. Like he literally just ults whoever he's targeting, and so it's possible for Garen to just walk up. He does here, and then like this unit dies, so he walks this way, and then he just does his giant AoE this way, and the enemy is like in the back line. So like Garen just like ults nobody, right? So if Garen is a lot stronger, it'll encourage people to think about how to position Garen better, and all of a sudden it might look like he is so broken, because I think people have been positioning him really badly. This might look like a big mana change, and it kind of is, but you have to remember that Dynamos get double the amount of mana, so this I think it's fine. I mean, if anything, this might make Misfortune feel like it's more playable outside of 4 Dynamo, because before it felt like she has such a large mana pool that you kind of need the Dynamo for her to cast, so that way you can get some stuff on her. But it's possible. They did buff Syndicate, for example.
All right, on the augment side, not a lot here. Rost Hero augment getting a buff. It's just been way below the line for a while. Time to give it a buff.
It's pretty bad.
Board of Directors still overperforming. It's another 10% off of its base. Overheal has been overperforming a bit now. Glad that people finally figured it out and got it in a good spot. So just pulling back on that bonus damage a small amount. Speed kills. This is one that we know is pretty tied to like rapid fire Renekton and things like that. But for now, it's just going to get 1 less starting stack. Final reserves. This augment actually was giving more than we intended. It was giving the base XP and the gold, which was a bit much if you put it in the right situation. This was giving like 150 gold worth of value, which is not okay. So lowering the base XP quite a bit here. We're hoping this brings the win rate down on this augment to be a little bit more healthy. And then hard commit, when we added the gold per stage, ended up overperforming. So just taking 1 gold off per stage.
That is insane. A 40 gold nerf on a prismatic augment. That's like PBE numbers, you know? And PBE, you would see something like a crazy swing like this. How broken is Final? I mean, everyone knows that it's really busted. We have it really high up. I think we have it as like S tier as well. But it's an insane augment. Holy cow, man. Everything else makes sense. I'm actually surprised. I'm just to take a step back. I'm surprised at how few augment changes there's been in the past couple of patches. It must mean that their augment data is in the okay spot, because I look at like a lot of augments and I think, is this augment even playable? But they haven't buffed them in quite some time. I'm trying to think if there's any like examples off the top of my head. I'm gonna go ahead and go to like the augment tier list. But like, you know, I haven't taken. Let me pull up a gold tier augment here. Like, is Trial Run okay in Cyberdeck? Like these, I guess they're worried about Exotech. Or are, I guess, is Cuppers even in the game anymore? I think so. I guess like all these could be situationally okay. But I guess I just have to come upon them. Like next time I come upon it, I'm like, is this augment even good? Or like when's the last time I picked it? Like from my impression, I don't even think Capacitor is very good. But at this point, I'm nitpicking. It happens like basically once every 2 games I play or so, where I'm like, I don't even think I've clicked this augment even one time this set. Are they gonna ever buff this thing? And then they're not changing much. There's also probably a low sample size issue on some of these as well. So,
all right, on the item side, this looks like a lot, but all this is sort of, we launched that big item rework patch, last patch. Time to round out the edges. And so like Spirit Visage ended up a little below the line, plus 100 health. Cool. Yep. Steric's Gauge ended up a little over the line. We like that this item is like a big chunky AD item. That's still intended. We don't like that this item is ending up on Brahms and Cho'Gaths and stuff like that. That's not really its intent. So we're nerfing that part of it. So the shield will be a little smaller and last a little longer, or a little shorter. So Steric's won't be quite as good there. And then Void Staff, we know there's some frustration around like how long this debuff lasts, especially if you're playing like a brand. You cast once, you apply the debuff to the backline, and then it's gone by the time you cast again. So we're going to increase the duration on Void Staff. It's not really a weak item or anything. It's just, it'll last a little longer to help you out. On the Radiant side, Radiant Ginsu's a little below the line. It's going to get terrible. 10% base attack speed and AP. That's not a massive buff because it's only the base. So, Radiant.
The only Radiant item that has positive delta in the game is Radiant Rageblade, I think. From when I last checked a couple days ago, it's pretty bad. I'm actually kind of sad that they're nerfing. Like, I actually like the utility of Steric's Gauge. It felt like Adaptive Helm in a different way. You know, Adaptive Helm you could put on your carries, or you could put on your frontliners. It felt like Steric's Gauge was like that. I enjoy that flexibility of the item. Whatever. But here's the Graves nerf that you guys want to. It is a big deal. Survivability of Graves is important. It's part of what makes it really good. So if people like saying, where's the Graves nerfs? Where's the Graves nerfs? This is a Graves nerfs because this is his best item. So it is what it is. Also, Spirit Vision is a terrible item, but like, it's good on the units that it's good on. So it's like very good on Zac, for example, because Zac benefits from it. We'll see.
Spirit Visage, same thing, matches the health and more durability as well to make sure it feels like a Radiant item. Steric's Mega Shield's gonna last. The shield's gonna last a little less long. Still 1 second longer than the base, and it is a bigger shield. Not trying to like over nerf it here, but does need a nerf. Radiant Chain Striker, Radiant Striker's Flail, went pretty far over the line. Yeah, actually. So less attack speed, less crit, less damage amp per stack on the Radiant version, and then Radiant Void Staff was below the line quite a bit. So it's going to get some more mana, quite a bit more attack speed, and a little more AP. This should bring this item up and make it a bit more powerful. And then on the artifact side, Flicker Blade, a little over. This number's green. It should be red. Typo. Sorry about that. Flicker Blade being nerfed by 1% per stack. Just a little overperforming. And then Shiv, the Indomitable, and Titanic Hydra, a little below. Part of this could still be that people are trying to figure out the right builds and who to play on them. But in the meantime, we do want to make sure they're exciting to get. Shiv, going to get a pretty big buff here.
Oh, wow.
You'll notice quite a bit of attack speed and AP to go with those procs.
That's insane.
I think there's actually a typo here. Yeah, I think, sorry. I'll call it out here. I think Static Shiv, this is a typo. I believe it's supposed to be damage on proc goes up to 40, Attack speed goes up to 40 and AP goes up to 40. I know it's like 40, 40, 40. So forgive me. Those numbers are incorrect.
Okay.
But the Indomitable numbers and Titanic Hydra numbers are correct. So this looks like a copy paste from the Radiant Void Staff. Sorry about that.
Nah, it's all good, Mort Dog. Okay, so the reason why, actually, I stand corrected. Rageblade was the only searchable. I remember this came up. Rageblade was the only searchable one, but you need to like use an exception. The new Radiant items are even worse, and I remember because these icons didn't show up when I was first doing the search for them. So yeah, these need to get buffed as well. But Radiant Rageblade is pretty terrible. Don't really build it right now this patch. But you see how the stats on it are pretty awful. These are that's basically Radiant Spirit Visage and Radiant Void Staff. Both are in desperate need of buffs for sure. Titanic Hydra getting buffed. That's a Graves buff. Nice. It's actually Graves' best artifact, right? So maybe now you open up Titanic Hydra and I'm Graves. Me Graves. Also, Titanic Hydra is not. Someone said that Titanic Hydra is really good on Renekton. I think it's okay on Renekton. I don't think it's as. I remember someone prioritized that. They hit Renekton 2 and then they lost every fight. And I was like, oh, I was expecting like a crazy pop off. Didn't do that well. It's all right. Everything else here makes sense as a buff.
So anyway, Static Shiv buff isn't quite as big, but it is still a big buff. Yeah, you'll look in the official patch notes and they'll be there correctly. Sorry about that. And finally, bug fixes. Fixed a bug where Ziggs with Cyber Boss bonus would deal no damage to an enemy if they were the last target alive. So if you played Ziggs carry, you know how this felt.
Oh, man.
Static Shiv no longer overflows infinite damage when reinforcing and double up. Divinicorp's Crown tooltip corrected to say it grants a Spirit Visage instead of a Redemption. Okay. Exalted Adventures reward correctly replaced the removed Anima Visage with the Indomitable. Okay. Double up Gifts Armory reward of a random completed item can no longer fail to give an item. Man, when we have to change out an items, we have to change it in a lot of places, and so these errors we gotta fix that. Renekton 3 now correctly gains 10,000 max health instead of 30,000. So bit of a nerf to Renekton 3, I suppose.
Dude, they nerfed Renekton 3? Dude, who asked for this? No, it's true. 10,000 versus 30,000 HP.
Anima Squad's Boom 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 Trains now work on your partner's board when reinforcing and double up. So if you have 10 Anima and double up, cool. Malicious monetization no longer fails on Zac and units with Suspicious Trenchcoat.
Oh, great. Didn't even know that.
So the Cypher prop now correctly updates immediately at the start of each stage. Cool. Tome of Traits no longer prevents Clear Mind from working. Great.
Ooh.
And Garen's trait mods can no longer be applied to training dummies with Syndicate emblems.
Wait,
there you go.
You could actually You can actually mod a dummy? Well, I feel like I needed to try that. I didn't even realize. That was crazy. The famous Bog Zig crash out. Dude, I had a Ziggs. This is actually just so infuriating. I can't believe Ziggs can't shoot one unit. This is a massive change. This might actually be the biggest buff of the patch because they buffed Ziggs last patch expecting him to be good or better, and then it was like nothing changed very much. And then all of a sudden, we realized that Ziggs doesn't actually kill a last enemy target alive. Who knows, man? Maybe Ziggs is a complete beast now.
Like I said, we're at the end of a set. We're getting near the end. It's not a very big patch or anything like that, but it is still a patch. Should bring some light changes. Let us know. There's, I think, 2 patches left this set after this. So if there's anything in particular you guys felt like you haven't seen this set that you're like, I'd really wish you guys would get to this, now would be the time to bring those up so that we can try to get them in for the last patch or 2. And then pretty soon it will be spoiler season, which will be pretty exciting. So, yeah. All right, and there you go. Patch 14.6. Should be fun. All right. That's going to do it for me. 2 more patches left. Good stuff. Until next.
All right. Thanks, Mort. Appreciate it. Always good to have Mort Dog back. People claps in the chat. All right. So, I was looking at the roster of set 14. I think this is basically as good as it's going to get. Because I thought about it for a while. I was like, what do I want? He asks it every set. What do you want out of the rest of the set? And I can think of scenarios where all these units are played, right? Alistar Mundo, Poppy, Morgana, the Nitros, Shaco, Silas, Vizar. Like, you can think about all of them. It's like there's not many more things I want out of the set. So I think for me, like emotionally, mentally, I'm ready for set 15. This is the shortest set of the year. I'm ready. Set 14 was all right. I actually have a lot of thoughts about the set that I'm waiting to I'm probably gonna put in a full video in when I'm ready to do it. But overall, I think the set is as good as it's going to get. And the past couple of patches have been pretty solid. Nothing wrong with the past couple of patches. There's obviously outliers. Like 2 patches ago, Amp and Rapid Fire Renekton's too good. They still aren't really nerfing Amp. It looks like they're just gonna have Amp be good for the rest of the set. Like it's just gonna be open for into Amp a lot. But the one hope that I have is that this system change is going to change our play patterns. So like you're not going to have as much gold to be able to do that. So it's like way more punishing, and you have to have good econ in order to play it. Because right now it feels like a lot of people just do it because they can. Anytime they can just make that feel less rewarded is good in my book. Hopefully next set is the juice. Agreed.